Chris Walker never thought he'd need a fake girlfriend until family pressure and media scrutiny backed him into a corner. With his sister's extravagant wedding fast approaching, his mother had been relentless about his love life, and the press wasn't missing a chance to pick apart his personal affairs. The last thing he wanted was to give his ex another reason to humiliate him in the headlines. He needed someone convincing enough to keep his family at bay for an entire weekend, but also someone who wouldn't mistake this arrangement for something real. That's when he saw her. Lena Carter effortlessly balancing 2 trays of champagne flutes while brushing off a drunken businessman demanding a cocktail she didn't even serve. Her expression was edged with annoyance, but she maintained a cool professionalism. She was sharp, quick-witted, and clearly unimpressed by the wealth around her. Perfect. Chris adjusted his cufflinks, stepping away from the bar with his usual confidence as he approached Lena. "Excuse me," he said smoothly, placing himself between her and the insistent businessman. "Is there a problem here?" Lena arched a brow, her deep brown eyes filled with suspicion. "Just a customer demanding something I don't serve." Chris smirked. He already liked her. "Walk with me," he said, as if it was a given. Lena hesitated, but after a brief pause, she sighed, handed off her tray, and followed him toward a quieter corner of the venue. "If this is about complaining, I don't have time," she stated plainly. "It's not," Chris assured her. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I need a fake girlfriend for a wedding this weekend." Lena blinked. Then she laughed. "You want to hire me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" "Exactly." "And why me?" Chris appreciated her directness. "Because you don't seem like the type to swoon over money, and you clearly have no patience for nonsense. I need someone who won't read too much into this." Lena crossed her arms, sizing him up. "And what exactly would I have to do? Smile, pretend to like me, and make my family believe I'm not a complete lost cause in relationship?" She tilted her head. "You must be really desperate. You have no idea." A slow smile spread across Lena's lips. "All right, Chris Walker. I'll be your fake date, but I have conditions." He smirked, intrigued. "I'm listening." "First, I don't do forced affection. If I have to pretend to like you, you'd better make it easy for me. No arrogance, no barking orders, and no treating me like your employee." Chris chuckled. "Fair enough." "Second," she continued, "I don't do uncomfortable shoes. If I'm going to be on your arm all weekend, I'm picking my own outfits. I'll have a stylist send over some options, but you get the final say." Lena nodded in approval. "And third, if this turns into a mess, I walk, no questions asked." Chris studied her for a long moment. She wasn't intimidated by him, wasn't blinded by wealth. She was just a woman who knew her worth. "Deal," he said. Lena exhaled, shaking her head. "I can't believe I just agreed to this." Chris grinned. "Trust me, neither can I." But as he watched her walk away, he had the strangest feeling that this arrangement was about to become far more complicated than he had anticipated. Lena adjusted the silk dress draped over her frame, still unable to believe she was wearing something this expensive. A strange job, she reminded herself. A high-paid job, but a job nonetheless. Outside, the sleek black town car was already waiting. She took a steadying breath just as the door opened and Chris stepped out. His tailored suit fit like it had been crafted just for him, every sharp line emphasizing the effortless confidence he carried. His gaze swept over her from head to toe, lingering just a second too long before he extended his arm. "You clean up well," he remarked, something unreadable lacing his voice. Lena smirked, slipping her arm through his. "You don't look so bad yourself." They stepped into the grand hall, where golden chandeliers cast shimmering light across polished marble floors. Laughter and conversation hummed around them, but almost instantly heads turned. Not toward Chris, toward her. A striking woman with sharp features approached, the sequins of her gown catching the light like a statement of power. Olivia Walker Christa's sister. "Well, well," Olivia mused, lips curving slightly. "You actually brought someone." Chris sighed. "Nice to see you too, Olivia." But her gaze had already shifted to Lena, eyes assessing, searching for cracks. "And you are?" Lena didn't hesitate. She extended a hand, her smile cool and composed. "Lena Carter, pleasure to meet you." Olivia shook it, expression unreadable. "Likewise." Before Lena could reply, another voice cut through the moment. "Chris, you didn't tell us you were bringing someone." An older woman approached Chris's mother, but unlike Olivia, she clasped Lena's hands the moment she got close, warmth radiating from her. "My dear, you're stunning," she said brightly, "and he's been keeping you a secret all this time." Lena smiled, unfazed. Some men are terrible at sharing good things. Chris shot her an amused glance, but his mother beamed. "I like her." Olivia folded her arms. "We'll see." Chris leaned in, his breath warm against Lena's ear. "Welcome to the circus." Lena smirked, scanning the crowd. "Let's see if I can tame the lions." Chris chuckled, but there was something else in his expression now, something intrigued, something impressed. And as the night unfolded, Lena had the distinct feeling that this job might be far more complicated than she had expected. Lena quickly realized one thing: Chris's family wasn't easy to fool. They were polite, but behind their smiles and casual conversation, she could feel the scrutiny, especially from Olivia. His sister was looking for cracks in their story. But Lena wasn't easy to shake. She engaged effortlessly with Chris's mother, answered his father's questions with confidence, and even made one of his older uncles chuckle at her wit. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Until Olivia spoke up. "So how did you two meet?" Olivia asked, voice light but eyes sharp. Lena didn't falter. "At a charity event." "Oh?" Olivia tilted her head. "Chris doesn't talk much about charity events. Who made the first move?" "He did," Lena smiled, glancing at Chris playfully. "But I said no the first time." Olivia's brows lifted. "Really?" Chris smoothly interjected. "She couldn't resist my charm forever." Lena scoffed, shaking her head. "I made him wait before agreeing to a date." Olivia didn't look convinced, but she had no way to disprove their story. At that moment, the music shifted to something softer. Couples began drifting toward the dance floor. Chris turned to Lena, wordless, simply holding out his hand. She hesitated for a second, then placed her palm in his. Chris pulled her in, his hand resting lightly on her waist as they swayed to the music. This wasn't part of the deal, but Lena realized it didn't feel like pretending anymore. "You're handling this well," Chris murmured. Lena tilted her head, eyes challenging. "Did you expect me to fail?" Chris smirked, but there was something softer in his gaze. "No." "But you're surprising me." Lena's breath caught for just a second. "You didn't think I'd fit into this world?" she asked. Chris studied her. "No." "I thought you'd hate it." Lena exhaled, voice quieter. "I've learned how to adapt." Chris's grip tightened slightly, and for a moment, the rest of the room disappeared. But before anything more could happen, a voice interrupted. "Chris," Olivia called, "may I cut in?" Lena stepped back, but Chris didn't let go immediately. After a beat, he released her and turned to his sister. Lena retreated to the edge of the ballroom, reaching for a glass of champagne. "You don't belong here, do you?" The voice made her pause. She turned to find Marcus, Olivia's fiancé, studying her. She raised a brow. "What makes you say that?" Marcus sipped his drink, eyes sharp. "Most women in your position try harder to impress. You don't." Lena took a slow sip, voice steady. "Maybe I'm not like most women." Marcus smirked. "I wonder how much you actually know about Chris." Lena didn't take the bait. "Enough to know I should avoid troublemakers." She was about to walk away when Chris appeared at her side, his voice low but firm. "Something wrong?" Marcus shrugged. "Just chatting." But Chris wasn't fooled. His hand pressed lightly against Lena's back. "Let's go." And Lena let him lead her away. She could handle Marcus, but the real problem was how much Chris seemed to care. And that was dangerous. The next morning, the Walker estate buzzed with last-minute wedding preparations. Staff rushed to arrange flowers, adjust lighting, and set tables for the lavish ceremony. Lena stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down the pearl-colored gown the stylist had chosen for her. She had never worn anything so luxurious before, but what unsettled her more was the way Chris looked at her. All morning he had stayed close, a light touch on her back as they walked through the halls, a brief but deliberate brush of his fingers against hers when no one was watching. No words were exchanged, but she knew something had shifted. But this was just an arrangement, right? As Olivia walked down the aisle in a breathtaking wedding gown, the entire garden fell into a hushed admiration. Lena wasn't looking at the bride. She was looking at Chris, and Chris was looking at her. His gaze softened, and before she could fully process it, he leaned in and whispered, "Stay with me." Her heart clenched. She had no idea how to respond. She had always believed she could separate work from emotions, but this wasn't just a job anymore. Before she could dwell on it, applause erupted as Olivia and Marcus sealed their vows with a kiss, the perfect wedding scene. But Lena wasn't paying attention. Chris had said stay, and the only question looping in her mind was, could she? As the ceremony wrapped up, Lena slipped away to the bar, needing a moment to collect herself. But Olivia appeared beside her, wine glass in hand, a slow smile playing on her lips. "So, Lena," Olivia mused, swirling her drink, "you and Chris seem comfortable." Lena kept her expression neutral. "I'd hope so. It would be a shame to spend an entire weekend with him and still find him unbearable." Chris, standing nearby, chuckled, but Olivia wasn't easily amused. "So what happens after this weekend?" Olivia asked, tilting her head. "When the wedding is over." Lena's fingers tightened around her glass for a split second, but Chris didn't flinch. He set his drink down and met his sister's gaze head-on. "That's between us." Olivia didn't argue, but the way she watched Lena said enough. And the worst part was, Olivia didn't need to ask, because Lena didn't know the answer herself. The evening carried on with laughter, wine, and endless dancing, but Lena couldn't focus anymore. Chris's words still echoed in her mind. "Stay with me." She didn't know what she had been expecting, but when their eyes met from across the room, she knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed. Lena slipped out onto the balcony, letting the cool night air steady her thoughts, but it wasn't long before Chris joined her. They stood there in weighted silence, the glow of the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "So," she finally spoke, "after tonight, everything goes back to normal, right?" Chris watched her carefully, his gaze unreadable. "Is that what you really want?" Lena didn't answer immediately. She had told herself this was just an arrangement, a job. But now, looking into Chris's eyes, she couldn't lie to herself anymore. "Chris," she started, but he had already stepped closer, his fingers brushing lightly along her arm. "I don't care how this started," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I care about what it is now." Lena took a slow breath, feeling her heart pound. "If we do this," she murmured, "it has to be real." Chris tilted his head slightly, a slow smile forming. "It already is." Lena didn't wait any longer. She moved forward, pulling him down into a kiss. No hesitation, no pretending. Chris held her close, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along, and when they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers, his voice a quiet whisper. "You're not my fake girlfriend anymore." Lena smiled softly. "No, I'm not." From the moment Lena kissed Chris under the balcony lights, everything had changed. No more contracts, no more pretending, just the two of them, completely and undeniably real. In the days after the wedding, they spent more time together. There was no longer any need to keep up appearances, yet neither of them wanted to be apart. They started dating for real, lazy mornings at a small coffee shop, late-night drives just to watch the stars. Lena discovered that Chris, for all his sharp edges and business-like demeanor, had a softer, more thoughtful side she had never seen before. One evening, he took her to a carnival he had visited as a child. "You, Chris Walker, billionaire businessman, actually like carnivals?" Lena teased as he eagerly picked out a candy apple. Chris shrugged, grinning. "I like simple things. It doesn't always have to be extravagant." Lena laughed, but warmth spread through her chest. Another night, they walked along the beach, his fingers intertwined with hers as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Lena asked, her voice as soft as the waves. Chris was silent for a moment before he gently squeezed her hand. "I didn't know," he admitted. "But I know one thing, I don't want you to go anywhere." Lena stopped walking, turning to face him. There was no hesitation in his eyes, no walls between them anymore, just pure honesty. She smiled, rising on her toes to press a soft kiss to his lips. "Then I'll stay." Under the moonlight, Chris pulled her into his arms, holding her close as if he already knew he was never letting her go. 1 year later, Chris knew he couldn't wait any longer. His love for Lena had only grown stronger with time. From simple dates to spontaneous road trips, from quiet laughter to deep conversations about the future, he knew without a doubt that Lena was the one. And tonight, he was going to show her. A romantic dinner in his penthouse, candlelight reflecting off the crisp white tablecloth, rose petals lining the floor, and a bottle of the finest wine waiting. Lena walked in, eyes widening in surprise. "What are you up to, Chris Walker?" she teased, but something in his gaze made her heart race. Chris didn't answer. He just smiled, poured them both a glass of wine, and enjoyed dinner with her. Then, as the last sip of wine was taken, he stood and held out his hand. "Come with me." Lena placed her hand in his, letting him lead her to the balcony, where the city lights stretched endlessly before them. And then he dropped to one knee. Lena froze, her heart hammering so hard she could barely hear anything else. Chris opened a small velvet box, the diamond ring catching the light, but it wasn't the ring that took her breath away. It was the pure devotion in his eyes. "Lena Carter, will you marry me?" Her vision blurred with tears. She had never been the kind of woman who believed in fairy tales, but this moment, with him, felt like magic. Her lips trembled as a soft laugh escaped her. "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking. "Yes, Chris, I will." That night, between candlelight and rose petals, they made love. Not as a game, but as two people truly in love. The following weeks were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Chris, despite his usual composed demeanor, insisted on being involved in every little detail. "You're surprisingly invested in flower arrangements," Lena teased one afternoon. Chris smirked, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm invested in you." 3 months later, their wedding was nothing short of a dream. Lena walked down the aisle in a breathtaking white gown, her heart pounding with every step toward the man waiting for her. Chris stood at the altar, looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered in the entire world. When he took her hand, his grip was warm, steady, and full of promises. "I love you," he whispered as he slid the ring onto her finger. Lena's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I love you too." Their vows were spoken, their promises sealed with a kiss, and as the crowd erupted into cheers, Lena knew that this was everything she never realized she had been waiting for. A week after the wedding, Lena started feeling different, tired, nauseous in the mornings, and oddly emotional. Something in her heart already knew before she even took the test. When she saw the 2 pink lines, her breath caught. Pregnant. Her hands trembled as she scheduled an appointment, but nothing could have prepared her for what the doctor told her next. She wasn't just having a baby. She was having twins. Chris was in the middle of a meeting when she walked into his office, her expression unreadable. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, concerned. Lena didn't say anything at first. She just took his hand, placed it over her stomach, and whispered, "You're going to be a dad, Chris." Chris went completely still. And then, before she could even blink, he pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground and spinning her in circles, laughing breathlessly. "Lena," he murmured against her hair, voice thick with emotion, "I love you. I love you so damn much." She smiled, wrapping her arms around his neck. "You might want to save some of that love." Chris pulled back slightly, looking at her with nothing but pure joy. "For who?" Lena took a deep breath, barely holding back her own laughter. "For our 2 baby girls." Chris's eyes widened. "2?" Lena nodded. "Twins." For the first time in his life, Chris Walker was speechless. And then he kissed her, deep and full of love, pressing a gentle hand to her stomach. "Our girls," he whispered in awe. "Our family." Lena smiled, knowing without a doubt that this this life, this love, this future was exactly where she was meant to be.